For more than 30 years, New Covenant has been Central Virginia's premier classical Christian institution. Our school established its reputation by teaching students not just what to know, but how to think. Not just how to take a test, but how to actually learn. Not just how to feel, but what to love. And not merely how to make a living, but more importantly, how to live. Today, we have served hundreds of students and changed their lives with an education that offered them the very best of what has been thought and said by great minds before us. In short, we offer our students an education in the good, the true, and the beautiful. After more than 30 years, however, many people don't know how the great idea of classical Christian education came to Central Virginia, and how it has grown into a thriving campus community with incredibly talented faculty and staff. This is the story of New Covenant Schools.
In January of 1991, I had this great opportunity, being a faculty member at Liberty University, to take my family with me and go on sabbatical to do research out at Washington State University, my alma mater, and right across the state line from Pullman, Washington, is Moscow, Idaho, where Douglas Wilson had started just a few years before that, the Logos School. This was a classical Christian school, and we had never heard of such a thing, but we enrolled our son in the third grade that January of 1991. And I got busy with my research, but in the evenings, of course, we would interact with our son, who's having this incredible experience at this unusual school. And he just came to life academically and spiritually, and so much so that we really had a big decision to make. I did have the opportunity to stay there in Eastern Washington, or we were headed back to Virginia to start a school like Logos School in Lynchburg.
And as I recall, there were about 8 moms who were homeschooling. And Robert Littlejohn was there, and they were talking about the homeschooling. Hey, why don't we all get together and do some classes together? And so they did. And they started meeting in that little church. It was, I think, a 3-room church, very, very small. And that's when New Covenant Schools began.
This was going to be a task. With just 16 students and a few volunteer teachers, things got underway. But what was the most important thing to our founding board and faculty?
So the thing we always talked about on the board, that our mission at New Covenant was we want to be classical, Christian, and excellent. All three, none are negotiable. So this year, next year, and 40 years from now, we want to be classical, Christian, and excellent. So there was no compromise on any of those things, and board members had to subscribe to that, and that was our mission. And everything was geared around being classically educated, but focused on historic Orthodox Christianity that transcends denominations. We're not Presbyterian, we're not Episcopal, we're not Baptist, we're historic Christianity, but excellent. We don't want to do anything halfway.
Not only was there a commitment to faith and academic excellence, there was an unwavering commitment to an education that was not chasing current fads, but committed to the basic purpose of education, which is not just to inform, but to transmit our cultural inheritance.
It was the nitty-gritty of teaching and learning. We were teaching students how to think. We were teaching them the basic building blocks of reading and writing and thinking. And it took into consideration the best that had been thought and said in the past. And I felt like it wasn't just looking forward to the future of what these children would become, but also to the past and what the past had to teach us and also to teach them.
So here we were, having started a school, again, a lot like, but not entirely like, this school in Moscow, Idaho, and really we're the second school of this kind in the nation. We realized that a movement was beginning.
New Covenant grew faster than anyone could have anticipated, from the original 16 up to 170 students by its 7th year. That's an average increase of 25 new students each year. The school's location had to change 4 times to meet the growing need of the student body. They started at Providence Reformed Episcopal Church, moving to the Church of God, then Fort Hill Community School, finally having to split the school up, with the upper school moving first to the Seven Hills School and then to the Jones Memorial Library. This made it difficult for many parents.
I had a lot of friends where mom would drop off my friend, then she would have to drive to the other side of Lynchburg and drop off the brother, sister who was in the upper school. So that was a huge inconvenience, and pick them up in the same way. So
those early years were all about getting things going, getting things started, making those changes that I feel like got us into a safe harbor, but it was time for new leadership. It was time for someone else with a different skill set who could take New Covenant to the next level and the next level and to a bright future.
Dr. Littlejohn had successfully founded the school, but after 7 years, he seriously reconsidered the school's ongoing leadership needs. He determined to step aside and return to work in the college setting. This meant that the board was going to need to find a new head of school. At that time, Reverend John Heaton was the headmaster of a classical school in Florida. He had heard about New Covenant and decided to apply. Upon arrival and several meetings with the board, it was unanimous. Heaton was the man for the job.
I was part of the search committee that was searching for a new headmaster after Robert Littlejohn left. And John Heaton, he by far surpassed everybody else that we ever interviewed.
You know, his talents and his abilities served us especially well at that point. The school was in a position, it needed a lot of organization, it needed a lot of administrative help, and that's his gift. And he really just kind of set us on a path to become a really robust and well put together school.
When I came to New Covenant, I was 35 years old. I didn't have as much experience as perhaps the school might have needed, but I had the youth and the energy for what the school demanded. And coming to Lynchburg, honestly, was like stepping into a Norman Rockwell painting. It made me think, I think I could spend my life here with these kind of people.
John and the board had been keeping an eye out for any possible options that could serve as the next location for the school that could house all of the students together, but ultimately had the dream of building their own facilities, specifically suited for the school's existing and future needs.
We sat down in a board meeting and we said, we need to be located in this area on a map, and we need to find a piece of property that will fit what we're trying to do. And there were only 3 options. There was a property that was too big, there was a property that was too small, and then there was one that was just right. It was the Goldilocks property.
Enter Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin Mumma, a local businessman who was invested in New Covenant schools. Heaton and Mumma met to look at the property.
The first time I remember seeing it, it looked pretty good, and we had looked at several other properties around town that might be suitable, that had buildings on them and everything else, but this looked like a good place to start, and so that's sort of how that came about.
With Mumma and a few other generous donors spearheading the project, they were able to purchase 50 acres of land on Fleetwood Drive that would become the permanent home for this young school.
The possibility of having facilities where we could expand not only our numbers, obviously, but also just our program and really be able to have a little breathing room was exciting to all of us. It felt like we were moving into a new stage of maturity for the school. Not sure exactly what that was going to look like, but excited at the prospect.
And what an exciting time it was to stand there and to dream.
Everything was on track, and contributions were coming in regularly. The dream of having a school building of their own was finally within reach.
Every class at New Covenant got involved in some particular project to help raise money for the school. And my 4th grade class at the time created a video, which was a mock newscast based on the WSCT anchors at the time. And we actually sent our little fundraising video to WSCT, and they liked it and invited us to tour the studio on September 11th, 2001. Obviously, that didn't happen.
We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center. We don't know anything more than that.
The events of the day took over, and the fundraising on the whole had to take a back seat.
It was a really tender moment in the culture of the school and the culture of the whole country. In fact, our project seemed doomed to go forward. It was difficult to talk about anything like what we were doing when the country was in shock for what had just happened. But nevertheless, we had some funds in hand and we had a piece of property and we were going to go forward and build a school. Construction on the new building started in 2002 in January and then was complete by December.
When the building got built, it did a few things. It made everyone in the community stand up and look and say, oh, wow, there's a new school here. It looks really nice. What is that? It changed the whole demand for education here went up in a step function because of the building. And I think it gave the whole parent and board community a legitimacy they didn't have before.
The school didn't stop there. Since the inaugural campaign to establish its campus, the school has completed 4 successive expansions to add classrooms, a field house, a fitness center, and to expand its chapel. As it has continued to grow, the campus has changed dramatically. One thing, however, has remained dramatically the same: our founding mission to provide classical education within the context of historic Christian faith.
As I reflect back, it was one of those things where I was able to give the very best years of my life to what I would say is one of the very best projects I could have ever asked God to do.
To have been a student, a teacher, a parent, and a board member, I have seen lots of different angles. I have experienced even the leadership and administration of the school in different kinds of ways, and every single point along the way I have been impressed. Everything that we do here has such intention behind it. All of it centers around our view of God, and what He does goes into every aspect of life. Because of everything that students here are getting and are experiencing, because it is a transformational process and experience, students who are here from kindergarten through 12th grade go through this very intentionally thought through process that really will shape the rest of their lives, and I really, really mean that.
The wonderful thing about New Covenant is it can be everybody's story. Everybody who comes to be a part of this community owns this story, and this becomes part of their story. And they get to write the next chapter and take it into the future to see what it will be. And if the future looks anything like what we've seen so far, New Covenant's best days are ahead of it.